be the first question. Why some people feel strongly attracted to someone else? What is at work in there? We don't know. So if we don't know that, why do we have such an obsession with knowing why a man gets attracted to another man or a woman to a woman? The assumption is, oh yeah, we know why men feel attracted to women and women to men, because that's the natural thing we'll find. So now let's investigate why those guys behave in such a funny way. Why do they feel differently? Well, no, the problem is we don't know why a man feels attracted to a woman. So the first mistaken question, that is the first question which is mistaken, erroneous. Since we don't know that, it makes no sense to ask the other question. We might as well ask why heterosexuality first. We get many more people, many more subjects to study on, so to say. Now, the second question, the medicalization of homosexuality. Homosexuality as a disease, as a mental illness. Well, of course, if you think homosexuality is a mental illness, then sure, you're going to want to find some cure for it. Okay? And you're going to have to find also, you're going to try to find some explanation for how this mental illness comes about. So first, let's look at the explanations that were given for why this mental illness occurs in the first place, and then we'll see a bit of the treatments that were devised to cure homosexuals. First, we had the psychoanalytical explanations by Freud, Sigmund Freud. Psychoanalysis. We've talked about Freud before in this course. And he had a number of theories. Basically, he didn't think homosexuality is a disease. He saw homosexuality as an arrested stage of development. So his theory is that every person, in particular every man, every male, goes through a homosexual stage when they are young, but then they go past that stage, and so they open up themselves to the opposite sex. And he thinks homosexual men simply got stuck, arrested, so that's the word he uses, stuck on that stage, they didn't go past that stage. So psychoanalysis should help them move ahead. Why did it get stuck on that stage? Well, he's got a couple of explanations. One is a deficient family structure with a dominant mother and a weak father that will result in a homosexual boy. He has a parallel explanation for homosexual women, for lesbians. And the other explanation has to do with the famous Oedipus complex that I'm sure you are familiar with. Oedipus. Okay? This is taken from a play by Sophocles, 5th century BC. We talked about Sophocles in this class early in the semester when we looked at Antigone, when we talked about natural law, remember? So in Oedipus, we have the case of a man, Oedipus, who ends up marrying his mother unknowingly. So we're talking about incest. And that's where he takes the name. We don't need to go into the play here. But basically, okay, so what Freud does is he applies some of the principles of this Oedipus complex to the genesis, so to say, of homosexuality. It's a beautiful story, very exciting, like all of Freud's stories, but not much that we can really test empirically or experimentally. The little boy, we are told, falls in love with his mother, and then one day he discovers that his mother has no penis. I always wonder how a little boy would discover such a thing, but it's beyond me. Anyway, so his mother has no penis, and then he thinks his father has cut his mother's penis, and so he gets afraid that if he finds he's in love with his mother, he will also get his penis. And so because of this fear, he retreats. And so as not to be a challenge to his father's possession of his mother, he assumes a feminine role. And from then on, because of his assumption of this feminine role, he will develop a homosexual orientation. And, very interesting story, but absolutely no trace of any empirical reality to it. It's only served to give many women unnecessary feelings of guilt throughout the 20th century by making them believe that the reason why their sons were gay was because of some fault of their own or something. Okay. So then we have another explanation in behavioral psychology. It's a behavior. So maybe a homosexual experience in early childhood will make a boy become homosexual. Or maybe in adulthood. There are different versions of this explanation. Well, again, no traces of empirical confirmation for these theories. We know that most boys do some homosexual experimentation at some point, masturbation with other boys or stuff like that, or they experiment in adolescence or late childhood or something. And then a minority become homosexually oriented and the majority go on to become heterosexual. So again, the explanation doesn't work. In adulthood or young adulthood, definitely not. Why not? Well, we have studies that show, there was a study done years ago on street hustlers, young street hustlers in their late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, that catered to the gay population in I believe, in the West Hollywood area. And well, it turned out that many of them, or most of them, were straight. They weren't even gay, not even bisexual. They were straight, had girlfriends and everything. And they just did the sex with other men for money. And they never became bisexual or even interested in men at all. As soon as they stopped doing it, they didn't need the money anymore, they lost all interest. They just developed a tolerance for sex with other men, and that was all. But we have even more striking evidence of this in the fact that many gay men marry on the mistaken advice on the part of doctors and ministers and counselors that if they marry and they have sex with a woman on a regular basis, they will become heterosexual. And that doesn't happen. You know, the typical stories of the man, the 60-year-old man who finally comes out of the closet and he has 5 children, and it doesn't matter. That doesn't change. And by the same token, so many heterosexual men have sex with men for, as I said, for many reasons, for money, for other reasons. And so we know for a fact that whatever this orientation is, heterosexual or homosexual, is fixed and set from early life. And no experience will change it. So a heterosexual man who has homosexual experiences does not become gay or even bisexual. A gay man who has heterosexual experiences, and virtually all homosexual men, the great majority, have heterosexual experiences. At some point they try to become heterosexual because of social pressures and fears and prejudice. About 80% of gay men have girlfriends, have sex with them, live with them. Many of them marry them, have children with them. No one becomes heterosexual. Other explanations, hormonal explanations. In the early 20th century, when hormones were synthesized, male hormones, female hormones, the idea was, well, maybe these guys have a deficiency in male hormones, in testosterone. And so we'll inject them male hormones and see what happens. All that happened was that their sexual desire increased manifold, but to have sex with men, not with women. And they grew hair, because that's what male hormones do. And that's all that happened. Okay? So it wasn't a matter of hormones. It wasn't hormones. There were other explanations for homosexuality. So physiological explanations, anatomical explanations. Simon Levay L-E-V-A-Y, is